There's only Metro, nothing else.
Metro Exodus. Should you buy it? Welcome to a review of the third game in the Metro series. If this review helps you in any way, or you want to see more, leave a like, a comment, or even subscribe. This review will be in a 21:9 aspect ratio to give you that cinematic feel, so chuck it in full screen and enjoy. I've also reviewed Metro 2033 Redux in the past, which I will leave a link in the description to if you're interested. Metro Exodus was released on the 15th of February 2019. The release was a little smeared by controversy regarding its release on PC being exclusive to the Epic Games Store, but in today's review, we will be looking at the game based on its merits and not any external controversy. This review, as per usual, will be split into a number of categories, and as always, we will start with graphics. This game looks pretty much amazing in all aspects. I wasn't able to run the game on ultra settings due to my measly GTX 1080, but despite having my settings lower than max, the game still often blew me away with how it looked. The Metro games have always looked great, but this game takes it to a whole new level. The attention of details in areas that just really add to the look, such as little areas of chipped paint or little broken pieces of wood inside an old rowboat. Occasionally I would encounter textures that appeared noticeably lower resolution than others around it, and also sometimes small graphical glitches where it appeared that two objects were inside each other, which would cause the textures to flicker. These issues were minor and didn't happen very often at all. A minor issue I had when it came to graphics was also that there wasn't as many individual graphics settings as I would have liked, as it all seems to fit under one big banner of quality. The characters in this game also look quite good most of the time, but occasionally appear a little plastic or mannequin looking depending on the lighting or the character themselves. I found oftentimes the arms of the characters looked a little weird, especially at the bicep area leading into the forearm, but this is a tiny thing that you actually shouldn't even notice unless you're weirdly interested in anatomy like me. The lighting in this game is gorgeous as well, from the sun beaming down and reflecting off your makeshift weapon, to the interior lights often being dim and only illuminating small areas. It's hard to talk too much about the lighting without cutting into the next category of the review, where I'd say lighting fits in much better for this game. The main takeaway though is that overall this game looks graphically amazing, and I can only imagine how it would look if you could run the game at maxed out settings. The next and possibly most important part of any survival horror game, and especially of a Metro game, is atmosphere and immersion. These have always been my favourite aspects of the Metro series, and this game is no exception. Whether you're sneaking around in an underground tunnel with your small flashlight on, only barely illuminating the way, or driving around in a makeshift car out in the desert, this game is about as immersive as it gets. The game also almost always feels very tense and nerve-wracking, which caused me to sneak through almost the whole game, just in case there was an enemy nearby that I hadn't seen or heard. With incredibly minimal HUD, even less when you turn off the crosshairs like I did, the full screen is purely taken up by the game with no health bars or annoying meters to distract you. All aspects of the game are built into your character, so you almost never have to open a menu. From your map being a physical map that your character pulls out and holds in front of him whilst walking, to your visibility indicator being a small blue light on your character's wrist that lights up when visible. This game keeps you in the moment at all times. Small details such as your gas mask getting cracked if you're damaged too much, or even being able to place tape across the damaged area and being able to wipe off blood or water that may have sprayed onto your mask. This game literally does everything in its power to immerse the living hell out of you, and goddamn it works. Leading on from that, we have another category that is closely linked to atmosphere and immersion, and that is sounds, music, and voice. Beginning with music. When you're not in combat or any danger, the music is minimal or non-existent, relying on the sounds to keep you enthralled and immerse you, but when entering combat, the music gets intense and makes you feel like you're constantly in danger. The music will also sometimes provide small musical cues to build up the suspense and make you even more nervous than you already are about your surroundings. Then we have sounds. The game is truly enhanced by its excellent use of sound effects, which help to warn you of approaching enemies, set the mood and feel of the location you're in, or even scare the living carp out of you. From the sounds of roaring beasts and mutated creatures stalking around the corner, the various sounds of footsteps on different surfaces, and the squelch of a knife entering an enemy's skull, the sounds are intense and amazingly well done. When it comes to the guns and weapons within the game, all the guns sound powerful, and certain ones definitely sound makeshift, as if they could stop working at any minute, which is fantastic sound design in my opinion. And now we have voice.
Tell you why my mom died? Of course I didn't. It was because of Dad. He used to be even harsher back then. Used to come home from the barracks and reach for the bottle while taking off his boots.
Yes, more or less what I expected from you. But you got the picture. So, is your counter functioning? Have you checked it?
Yes, it's all green. Double checked it. Stepan's in the green too.
How do you like the backpack? Is it comfortable? Can you operate stealthily with it? I have a present for you here. A TR rifle.
This game is based in Russia, so all the characters speak with a Russian accent. Occasionally the voice can sound a bit cheesy or fake, but most of the time within this game, I found the dialogue incredibly gripping and found myself wanting to listen to every word the characters were saying to me. Now it could be debated that this is due to the dialogue itself and not the actual voice acting, but I found myself enthralled throughout. The voice acting can be switched to Russian, which sounds more authentic, but would result in you needing to read subtitles throughout the entire game. Now we move on to what is almost always the largest category of these reviews, and that is gameplay. Is the game actually fun to play? There are a ton of aspects to talk about for this game, so buckle down. We're going to start off with gameplay aspects that I consider good or effective within Metro Exodus. Right off the bat, we have a variety of difficulty options, which as per usual has been done incredibly well. These difficulties range from Reader to Ranger Hardcore. On the Reader difficulty, the combat and game are simplified for the player, as it's focused on allowing the player to experience the story and the world of the game. On the opposite side of the spectrum in Ranger Hardcore, the combat is made much more challenging, the enemies detect you much easier, ammunition and resources are a lot more scarce, and your weapons break a lot quicker. In between these options are standard difficulty options such as easy, normal and hardcore. The reason I love the way difficulty is done so much within the Metro games is that instead of making the player weaker and the enemies bullet sponges, the game changes the difficulty to a more meaningful and rewarding experience in which you actually have to think about what you're doing and act tactically. Due to the fact that Metro Exodus for the first time in a Metro game has open world segments, there are plenty of optional quests and objectives that you can get by chatting to characters at random times that will often reward you with information, a small but useful item, or even just extra dialogue, all of which feel worth it. The game also has a good balance between open world explorable areas and smaller confined linear areas, similar to previous Metro games. While exploration is not a requirement of this game, I would highly recommend it as you are able to find add-ons to your armor and suit that will provide benefits to you. These add-ons are very easy and possible to miss, but will give you things such as wrist-mounted motion tracking, night vision goggles, and more. There are a variety of new and unique environments within this game, from a hot sandy desert, wilderness area full of trees and a river, and more. Every area of the game looks and feels completely different and really expands what you thought you knew about the Metro universe. You can also drive a makeshift car in the desert area, which allows for quicker and easier traversal of the landscape than running. There's also incredible weapon customization in-game, which allows you to completely change the look and function of any weapon in the middle of your game. From a small revolver to an almost fully fledged sniper rifle, the customization is fantastic and can be done on the fly in almost any situation, allowing you to adapt to whatever may come your way. The weapons and gas masks also become damaged and require you to repair them at a workstation, as well as craft ammunition, medkits, and gas mask filters if you're running low. If you kill enough enemies within a camp, then it's possible for one or a few remaining enemies to surrender, holding their hands above their heads and getting on their knees, begging you not to kill them. This is an awesome attention to detail, and you can choose to leave them, kill them, or knock them out. You can also approach almost all combat situations in a variety of ways, from stealthily taking out enemies one by one, turning off all lights and sneaking past them in the cover of darkness, or run in and kill everyone with your shotgun and assault rifle. It's a lot of fun to approach different areas with different play styles, and that was just some of the many great aspects of Metro Exodus' gameplay. Now we move on to some of the not so good aspects. One aspect that you will likely notice eventually is due to the size of some of the areas within the game. It often feels as if you move quite slow. Most of the time this didn't bother me, as I was sneaking and trying to stay hidden, but occasionally I would get annoyed about how long it would take me to get from A to B, especially if I'd already been there exploring in the past. It was also quite common to get stuck on random little small objects on the ground that in most games you could automatically be able to walk straight over. This does show that they added hitboxes to almost every object in the game, which is a great detail, but it does get annoying when you get stuck on the tiniest plank when trying to sneak past an enemy. Speaking of getting stuck, there is quite a few invisible walls within the game that often left me frustrated that I couldn't get to an area that I thought I could. But due to the type of game Metro is, these invisible walls make some sense, as it would be pointless for me to climb on top of a warehouse roof when there is nothing up there. It's also very possible to get your car stuck in the desert area, which results in you not having a drivable car as there is no way to dislodge it. But luckily, a quest that you complete later on brings your car to you, so you do have a second chance if you make the same mistake I did. The climbing can also be a little finicky if you aren't in the perfect position, then your character will often just jump and sometimes have to repeat this multiple times before he decides to climb on top of the ledge. There are a few times where I encountered random floating objects, and where I got stuck inside objects and had to reload my save. One time I even encountered a glitch where almost everything disappeared and I could see through the map. Moving on from gameplay, we have content. Here we take a look at how long this game will actually take you to complete, depending on how you play it. As always, we'll be using the website How Long to Beat in order to work out these times. If you were to play just the main story and head only for the quest markers, then the game would take you roughly 13 to 14 hours. If you also do some extra quests and exploration, the game takes around 20 to 21 hours. And if you go all completionist, it should take you around 34 to 35 hours. Unfortunately, the Epic Games launcher doesn't record your in-game playtime, but I would have to say I've spent around, if not more than 35 hours playing this game, as I've been taking my time and enjoying the experience. But either way, it's a pretty decent length game. Now, with the amazing graphics and whatnot I mentioned earlier, how is the performance? As I mentioned before, I was running this game on a GTX 1080 at 3440 by 1440 resolution, and this game will hit your FPS pretty bloody hard in all honesty. Even with my settings lowered, the game still dips below 60 FPS pretty often. Luckily my monitor is G-Sync enabled, so there wasn't really any noticeable issues in the look of the game with the lower frame rate, but if you don't have a powerful rig or an Xbox One X or PS4 Pro, you may struggle to run this bad boy at an acceptable level. Some areas, such as underground or inside buildings, yielded a decent frame rate, whilst others, such as the luscious grass area, seemed to drop quite a bit, sometimes getting down to around 40 FPS at times. The final category we have is story. Now before you panic, I'll be aiming not to spoil anything about the story in this section. Artyom, your character, your wife, and a group of friends set off on a train across Russia in hopes of discovering a non-irradiated place to live and start a new community. For the first time within a Metro game, I found myself super hooked on the story in this game. I wanted to complete objectives and missions just to hear more about the characters and the story. This game helps you develop a close bond with all your travelling companions, and especially your wife Anna, who you would genuinely feel attached to throughout this game, along with almost all the others. Now finally, we move on to the overall experience and verdict of the game. This game is possibly the most immersive, atmospheric, and amazing looking game I have played of all time. It hooked me in, and I just continued to play at every chance I got. It feels cinematic and intense at almost all times, and the characters draw you in more than you expect. There is so much to explore, do, and find within the game's various open world areas. There are occasional glitches or issues with movement or traversal, and the performance definitely means the game won't be an enjoyable experience for those on older hardware. This game is currently $65 on the Epic Games Store, and has not yet had a sale as it only came out around 2 to 3 weeks ago as I'm recording this video. So, should you buy Metro Exodus? If you have a powerful enough PC or console, then I would 100% tell you to buy it as soon as possible. This is the most I have enjoyed a game in a very long time, and I wouldn't want others to miss out on the experience. I would say it's worth the full price by far, and if you're watching this video at a later date and the game is on sale, then it is even more of a yes, you should definitely buy this game. Anyway guys, that was my review of Metro Exodus. If you guys enjoyed this video, think about leaving a like or even subscribing, as everything like that helps me out when it comes to making videos for you guys. Next review should hopefully be Far Cry New Dawn, so stay tuned for that, and peace out everybody.